The largest white supremacist group known in the United States has 540 active members. It is organized and ran by a 27-year-old named Thomas Ryan Rousset out of Grapevine, Texas. They also operate a bunker out of Tennessee. And if you think we're going to stand by and let a little fucking snot-nosed kid, 27 years old, feed our children this fucking propaganda bullshit, I say fuck no. That ain't happening. You have a fucking 27-year-old kid, yes, I said fucking kid, that thinks he knows history. But we older generation, we have lived through fucking history. And we are going to put a stop to this shit. When you want to dismantle a building and destroy it, you don't start at the top. If you have a pile of bricks, you pull one of those bricks out of the bottom, it all fucking tumbles down. We have names, numbers, photos, pictures of homes of active members. They say they keep their membership list secretive. No, it's not a secret. They're having financial trouble as well. They have already been ordered to pay $2.75 million through a federal court for civil lawsuits. Active members are complaining about the cost of membership and how they have to pay to keep Thomas Rousset up. So it's already having difficulties. We can crumble it. One member at a time. One organization at a time. We're about to take movement and motion and put this in action. I'm ready. I'm about to embark on a journey and expose them all. I guarantee you I will. I took an oath to this country, and that's enough for me. So please come together, guys. It doesn't matter how you support it. You can send gifts through this video, through the comment section. You'll see a little gift box and you can send gifts through the video, or you can support through the GoFundMe link in my bio. We've already raised $200 and some odd. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact amount. But if you can send $1, $5, whatever, $10, everything will go toward this effort. We are going to dismantle them one by one, starting today. We've got people standing by. I've already spoken with someone that is willing to give us a very, very good discount on printing. We're going to have posters, highway signs, and everything else printed up. We're going to expose these people. If they want to be known, we're going to make them fucking known. We're going to plaster their fucking neighborhoods and their communities with their name and faces and what they do. That's how we're going to start. But as for me, I'm going to expose each and every fucking one of you racist sons of bitches. And once we take down one organization, we move on to the next. We will not stand by and let a 27-year-old snot-nosed fucking kid poison the future of our children. Like I said, we've lived through the past. We've lived through history. This son of a bitch's greatest accomplishment was working on his high school newspaper. Come together now, guys. Please support the cause. Enough is enough. No more fucking talking. Now is action.
Hi guys, my name is Kelvin, and you're welcome back to the channel. Look around. Look at what is still walking the streets of this country in broad daylight. They march, they post, they recruit, they wrap themselves in flags and talk about heritage, while spreading the oldest poison in the American story. The lie that some people are born superior, and others are born to be controlled, feared, or erased. White supremacy is not a ghost from the past. It is organized. It is online. It is still trying to put down roots in the minds of the next generation, and too many people still treat it like background noise. But here's the truth they don't want said out loud. The largest of these organized white supremacist groups in the United States is not some unstoppable army. By their own reported numbers, it is small, a few hundred active members. Their leadership is young, inexperienced, and already under serious legal and financial pressure after multi-million-dollar civil judgments. Members complain. Money is tight. The myth of strength is cracking. Still, a small group with a big megaphone can do damage if no one answers it. That is why silence is not an option. This is not about hate for hate's sake. This is about protecting children from being poisoned by the same old racial hierarchy that has already cost this country so much blood and so much potential. Our children want to be free from that evil. God is moving, and the only question left is whether we will move with him or keep pretending the danger is imaginary. Hate is destroying us. It is time to stand up for the truth.
White supremacy is in part motivated by a fear of death. White supremacists suspect on a deep level that there is not an afterlife, and that their racial identity, their skin color, is a source of legacy, and legacy is a proxy for immortality. So their anxiety about white replacement, white genocide, is a mortal fear. Fear that they will not continue on after their death in some capacity. If the racial identity to which they've tied their own immortality ceases to exist, then they cease to exist.
The men of the organization, they join and they have standards. You can join the organization eating poorly and being out of shape and maybe being lesser read and lesser traveled, but you can't stay that way. You know, because the organization has constantly a pressure to succeed, a pressure to be better, because that was the standard in American society.
Yes.
We had communities, whether you were in a church group, you're in a civil organization, you're in a union, you're in a fraternity, something. Everybody used to be connected, or just strong families. Our families have been decimated, so that pressure to succeed and be better, standards are missing. Everybody's atomized.
They fought for a nation that was proud of its heritage, that was unashamed to say that America was built by and for the descendants of the European race, that was unafraid to say that we have a culture deeply steeped in the Anglo-Saxon traditions of our forebears.
This happened yesterday. White nationalist group Patriot Front marching openly through downtown Kansas City, Missouri. Here's the part that we really can't ignore. These groups are feeling emboldened under Donald Trump's presidency. From Trump saying there are very fine people on both sides regarding the neo-Nazi gathering in Charlottesville in 2017, to retweeting a video of his supporters rallying in his name while shouting "White Power" in 2020, Trump's words sends a message, not of condemnation, but of permission. Patriot Front is a white nationalist group formed after Charlottesville. They don't just organize, they're recruiting, and they want the country built on racial purity. Kansas City leaders are condemning the march, but that's not enough if the federal government refuses to call this what it is. Domestic extremism. White nationalism isn't just surviving, it's organizing, and under this administration, it's marching in broad daylight.
White supremacists and white supremacy are the real criminals in this country. Now let that sink in. White supremacy and white supremacists are the real criminals in this country. Address all the white supremacy policies that you use to maintain white dominance over power and the wealth of this nation. Address those policies. And I would say, for example, the big ugly bill, they call it the big beautiful bill, does the very opposite of that. That's what I'm talking about. Just ride through a predominantly black community in your city and look at all the poverty. That's by design. That is by design. That is not because black people won't work or black people are unintelligent or black people have a propensity to commit crime. That's bull. That is by design. That is white supremacy. That is the result of the institutions, the systems, and all that is used, again, to dominate and control white power and white wealth. So let's really get to the bottom. I think Trump needs to go to the White House, Congress, the Supreme Court, some of those federal agencies that push white supremacy and cause the rest of the country, especially black people, to have to scrounge around and fight for crumbs that have fallen to the floor. And yeah, you control the resources in any community and keep those resources scarce, there's going to be crime. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be poverty that breeds all of that. A good place to look is go to any Native American reservation and see what you see. You see many of the same issues. Or go over to Gaza and see how the way Israel controls the food and the resources going into Gaza. Look at how the people act to get their hands on food and resources. It is the power structure, the white supremacy power structure that is really at fault here, not black victims of those institutions and systems. Don't let these people gaslight you. Stay woke.
White supremacy relies on having an uneducated population, and that is exactly what Trump's administration in the White House is creating today. Anti-intellectualism isn't just concerning because individuals don't know how to read or write at a high level. It's concerning because they don't know how to recognize patterns that are happening in society. They don't want you to recognize the historic danger of banning books or realize that in 2023 alone, more than 3,000 books were banned, mostly about sexuality, race, and gender. They don't want you to recognize that erasing history is dangerous, like how Florida changed slavery to involuntary relocation, or that the GI Bill that built the American middle class, including my family, excluded black veterans. Why? Because if you understood the way that racism is built into the foundation of this country, you would demand change. You would have to if you have any sort of conscience. From education to housing to policing, go back 30, 50, 70, 90 years and the pattern is all there. White supremacy needs you to be uneducated and complacent in your current status. So what is the most radical thing that you can do today, especially as a white person? Get educated, read a book, stop dismissing critical race theory as woke propaganda and actually look at the foundation of what we are saying, and you will literally be shocked.
So this is the response that I got from a white supremacist when I made a video against the Patriot Front. So please let me educate you in front of the whole world. I agree with you that European empires did conquer large parts of this land, the USA. But that does not mean that modern white people own America forever. And Europeans did not build America by themselves. Side note, did you know that black people were the original Homo sapiens? So does that mean they own all of humanity? You are trying to benefit from the barbaric behavior of your ancestors that you never met, as though their violence somehow gives you authority over people today. And that's where your insecurity shows, my friend. You didn't conquer anything. You didn't build the original colonies. You didn't fight those wars. You didn't create this country by yourself. Yet you are here publicly trying to borrow importance from the accomplishments and brutality of dead European men, because apparently you do not feel important enough based on your own work, character, or contribution to this world. A secure man does not need to claim ownership over an entire nation to feel valuable. He does not need Native Americans erased, Black people minimized, immigrants excluded, or women's labor ignored so that he can feel taller, more important, superior. That's what elementary kids at recess do. But you need to know that America is not inherited racial property. It belongs equally to the citizens living here now. But you inherited a story, mistook it as a title deed, and are now trying to turn someone else's violence into your own personal accomplishment. That is not strength. You are trying to demand status while covering up a very fragile identity, and that is weakness. Do better.
Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it has never served the interest of white people. Like, it's paradoxical that in order for the Southern social structure of planter, poor white, slave to even exist, it required an indifference of poor white people to the suffering of black people under the institution of slavery, while that same institution deliberately excluded them from the economic and political process. Let me make it clear that being born a white man in the South didn't mean you would accomplish shit. You had to own property if you wanted to vote in order to hold office. And how were you ever going to acquire property if no one was ever going to pay you? Because why would I pay you when I got slaves? slaves, it ultimately is your indifference that allows me to have. Hell, it wasn't until the Civil War that every state affirmed that just being born a basic white man meant that you had the right to vote. And I suppose they had to whenever they got ready to send the massive poor whites off to war. It's like, hey, bro, go fight this war, and when you get back, I'll let you vote for me. Like, it's a myth that the South couldn't build factories, bro. The South had the access to capital. They could have built factories and rivaled the North in manufacturing industry, but there's a problem with that. One is that the indifference of white people is built on the propaganda and the belief that God made black people to be inferior to white people. But that kind of goes out the window the moment you have a factory that's being operated wholly by slaves doing skilled trade work. So if I'm a planner and I'm considering building a factory, and I understand that I can't operate my factory with slaves due to the constraints of the racist ideology that I've employed across the South, that means that I've got to employ white people, which brings me to my second problem. If I'm going to be hiring white people, I'm going to have to pay them. And if I pay them, that means that they might have the ability to acquire property. Property being the minimum threshold for voting. You might start voting in a way that I don't want you to. I'm also going to have to educate you to a degree in order to have competent people to run the factory. At a bare minimum, I have to address the illiteracy in the South. So you mean I got to pay you and I got to teach you how to read? You're going to be able to vote and you're going to be educated? At that point, you pose a very real threat to me as the ruling class in this delicate social and political balance that I've created that benefits only me. In the interest of maintaining control on this delicate system that they had built, they decided against educating the masses, they decided against building factories and creating upwards economic mobility for the poor whites. Are you drawing any parallels between what happened in the early 1800s, mid-1800s, and what has happened today with the demise of manufacturing, the degradation of education, the elimination of voting rights? Are you starting to see a pattern? I say all of that to bring it back to his point. He's right. Racism has always existed as a functional tool for classism. It has always served to keep the ruling class protected from us ever meaningfully organizing and challenging them on anything. It has always existed to keep us economically and politically destitute. It has always existed to keep you exactly where you are.
White people are suffering from white supremacy too. I had a conversation with a client the other day who is a professor. They teach about white supremacy, African American rhetoric, and XYZ, and different concepts in the diaspora. And we were talking about how white people also are affected and are suffering from white supremacy as well, in the way that my phone overheated, but in the way that white people have no connection to their own culture or any culture whatsoever other than whiteness, white American culture. So an example of this would be that my friend and client who asked his class, how many of you participate in mutual aid? Nobody raised their hand. None of the white people raised their hand. He goes, okay, let me rephrase that, and says, how many of you have gone to a friend's house and their parents cooked for you? And then everyone raised their hand. And he goes, right, this is mutual aid. The way that white people have had to come up with a word for community, aka mutual aid, shows that they are suffering from white supremacy as well. While they think they're benefiting, you're actually not allowed to participate in things that would be beneficial to you because of white supremacy. And it's made to seem like black and brown people are the only people who participate in these things or who would benefit from these things. We, as POC people, we've always known and always participated in mutual aid or community because that's how we thrive. And we are not just self-focused, we're community-focused, community-oriented. And so the things we do are not just for ourselves, they're to benefit our community because that's how it's always been in our cultures. And while white people for so long have tried to strip us of our culture, we still have roots that tie us to our ancestors and our culture and these different practices that have been around long before we've ever existed. And if white supremacy didn't exist or wasn't so prevalent, white people would be allowed to connect to their culture as well. But they've been so brainwashed into believing that having culture or allowing black and brown people to participate in their culture is a threat to them, and that when we engage in culture it's part of our culture to be violent or oppressive, but really that's white supremacy culture. That's what y'all created. It's not in our culture to overtake others and be violent unnecessarily and hateful and oppressive. That's just not in us. Our cultures are uplifting and bring community together We dance, we sing, we create, we craft, we tell stories. That's our culture, and that's many of y'all's culture. But you refuse to see, white people refuse to see it that way. And so really, white people are keeping themselves in this vicious cycle of disconnection, of violence, and then want to be like, well, slavery was 300 years ago, like, why don't you just forget about it? No, like, you're still keeping that shit going, and it's actually having negative impacts on white people as well.
It's not shocking at all to see the people who are so quick to defend white supremacists are Christian. And am I saying every Christian is a white supremacist? No, but racism and American Christianity are like this. So when we are talking about criticizing religion, race always has to be a part of it, especially when we're talking about the United States, because it is impacting literally everything. And if you are denying that, you are either in one of these groups, defending one of these groups, or in denial and don't know the history about it in the United States. Evangelicalism has always been so intertwined with white supremacy, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up the reaction from evangelicals when they tried to desegregate public schools. It's always been there. So when you're seeing somebody in comment sections being racist or quick to defend white supremacists, and they have a little cross by their username, or they have a little cross in their bio, like a ton of the people in my comment sections being so angry that I criticized white supremacists, this isn't a coincidence. They are attracted to Christianity for very real reasons. And if you are a Christian and you are denying that, you are part of the problem. So yeah, none of this should shock anybody, because this has not changed at all.
You know what's crazy? The fact that white supremacy is so engulfing of white people, and they don't even realize it at half the time, I don't think. White supremacy is so palpable between them that it has white women actively voting against their best interests, against their freedom, against their humanity, in hopes of impressing their husbands, in hopes of impressing their preachers and other male leaders in the community, in hopes of finally being seen as equal to white men. And what's even crazier is they do all of that and it never works in their favor. These white men will never see them as equal. Their womanhood will always keep them as subordinate to white men. And it's just, it's gotta suck to actively vote against the things that give you autonomy, because you think that's what you have to do for little Timmy Turner to finally see you as a person. And he never will. Gotta suck.
Let's talk about what this ideology actually is. At its core, modern white supremacy is not just about skin color. It is about fear, deep, mortal fear. Fear of death, fear of irrelevance, fear that the story some people were told about their permanent place at the top of the human hierarchy is ending. So they turn racial identity into a substitute for legacy, for immortality. White replacement, white genocide. These are not policy debates. They are panic attacks dressed up as politics. When communities fall apart, when churches lose authority, when strong families become rare, when unions and fraternal organizations fade, when social pressure to become better disappears, lonely, angry people look for a tribe that will tell them they are special simply because of who their ancestors were. That is fertile ground for hate, and the historical story they sell is a lie. The claim that Western civilization rose purely on superior intelligence, superior work ethic, and superior culture ignores the centuries of extraction, forced labor, stolen land, and appropriated knowledge that built the wealth and institutions they now claim as pure merit. That is not ancient history. It is the foundation many of those institutions still stand on. Teaching the next generation a sanitized version of that story is how the myth of permanent superiority is kept alive. Contrast that with what black people in America have done. Starting from less than zero, legal property, then legal second-class citizenship, then systematic exclusion from wealth, education, and safety, black communities still produced a global cultural force. Music, language, style, sport, literature, faith, resistance. That is not theory, that is fact. A people who were never supposed to thrive became one of the most influential cultural engines on the planet. That should humble anyone still preaching racial hierarchy. When groups like Patriot Front feel emboldened enough to march openly in American cities, it is not a sign of strength, it is a test. They are measuring how much space the rest of us will give them. Every time we look away, they take another inch. Every time we treat their ideas as just another opinion instead of a threat to social peace, they recruit. The answer is not more silence. The answer is relentless public clarity. Call the ideology what it is. Refuse to let it hide behind free speech slogans when its goal is domination. Support the civil and legal tools that have already put some of these organizations under financial pressure. Educate young people so the poison finds fewer minds to settle in. Build stronger communities, families, churches, civic groups that give people purpose without needing a racial enemy. This country is in trouble when hate feels normal again. It is in trouble when children are taught that their worth is measured by ancestry instead of character and contribution. It is in trouble when the loudest voices are the ones selling fear of the future instead of responsibility for it. We do not have to accept that. Black people in particular have never had the luxury of pretending racial hatred was someone else's problem. We have lived the consequences. That history gives us both the right and the duty to speak clearly. This ideology is a dead end. It has nothing new to offer. It has already been tried, and it has already failed every moral and practical test. The work now is to make sure the next generation sees it for what it is, a shrinking, bitter, fear-driven project that cannot deliver the future it promises. Stand on the truth. Refuse the lie. Protect the children. That is not radical. That is basic survival for any society that still claims to believe in equal human dignity. Time for change. Our children want to be free from this evil. God is moving. This is why parts of this country feel like they are going to hell, because too many people still make room for hate. Stand up for the truth. Hate is destroying us. We do not have to let it. Speak, organize, educate, refuse. The future is still being written. Make sure it is not written in the same old blood. Thank you for watching. Share this if the message needs to travel. Stay awake. Stay rooted. Stay free.